first of all, there's been excellent contributions to the three organisations today. I suppose just as chairman of the committee, we've made a decision. There that we would put a report together on the whole nitrous delegation and its the compliance and I suppose the financial implications of any further reduction to the 220. And your contributions today have been very well researched and very well briefed, and they will help us greatly in putting our report together. But last week we had environmental groups in here in the room, and one of the groups was very clear and was referenced there earlier by I think the Senator Murphy quoted our opening statement. But they were very clear that actions that farmers are taking, low emission slurry spreading, clover and swards, protected urea, they were virtually a waste of time as regards improving water quality. That's quoting their words now, and that the only thing that would have an impact on water quality was reducing stocking rate. So they were very clear. So that is clear. That was the environmental group's message here last week. And as Deputy Fitzmaurice said, we were in Brussels in September and we met 3 different commissioners, and they were completely consistent in that the only policy that mattered in Brussels at that stage was environmental policy, and in particular climate change, and nothing else really mattered. And the consistency between the different commissioners was actually frightening. You think they were all reading the exact same script. So that's the background, and I know Mr. Edward, you talked about the Commission and the fact that we are the only ones that have a system of farming that deserves a delegation, the only ones that can really justify with our long growing season, etc. But at the moment in Holland, they're exporting slurry to Poland, and the emissions of that, I think you'd have to put up in lights. But they have a very intensive farming and a very intensive agri-food industry there. But we have to convince those other 26 countries that we deserve this delegation. And it's most definitely going to take everyone in this country putting together and that are, I suppose, agriculturally focused and see that the huge damage that and any other further change to delegation would do to our economy. And the point was made there, I suppose. It's one of the most frequent questions, and I'd say other members will be the same, that I've been asked in the last 6 to 12 months by dairy farmers in particular was, is there a cessation scheme going to come in for dairy farming? If I've got one call on that from farmers, I couldn't put a figure on how many I've got. And I think, that really, puts in context the morale that's out there in the industry at the moment, and the lack of the lack of certainty in their future. And I suppose, I grew up in an era of farming from the early 80s to 2013, 2014, where our industry was severely handicapped by quotas, and that was stopping young people entering the industry. But now we're threatened with an environmental quota that again will do the exact same thing again, will freeze our industry, and even probably worse than quotas, as has been quoted there, the amount of small family farms or medium-sized family farms that will be forced to contract cow numbers, and again the viability of those farmers just really goes down the tubes. But I was in Tirlawn yesterday at their invitation at their innovation centre, and and I'm not picking out them as one co-op, I'm sure other co-ops are doing it, but I was just asked there yesterday, and they're putting very significant resources into this battle, because they know the viability of what is a multinational business depends on the supply of milk. And I suppose it's why the wheel turns so quickly. 3 years ago, less I suppose, 2 or 3 years ago, we were told there was going to be a cap on peak supply. And now the only concern processors I have is, are we going to be able to keep our processing plants with an adequate supply of milk? So that wheel has turned very, very quickly. And I suppose food security has been mentioned here a number of times tonight, and it is the only thing that's going to bring common sense back to the legislators. But, you know, we're going to have to wait a while for that food security to kick in. The war in Ukraine, I suppose, brought it back on the table when the war in Ukraine started, but very quickly it was forgotten about again. And maybe, you know, that lamb prices in the UK and, you know, the scarcity of lamb in the UK might bring a bit of common sense into it again, that Europe, you know, not needs to be only self-sufficient in energy, but needs to be self-sufficient in food as well. And we have the ability to do it. I suppose the thing that really galls me is, and Deputy Healy-Rae referred to it there, environmentalists, and we have a huge issue with migration at the moment. A lot of those people are migrating because their part of the world is not able to feed them anymore, and they're migrating because climate change, etc., don't able to feed them. But we have ability to produce food here in Western Europe, and we seem to be putting every conceivable obstacle in our way. Now, I accept fully that climate change is a fact of life, and as has been referred to here a number of times already this evening about the amount of rain we're getting at the moment, and you know, we've had a couple of wet years in a row, and we have to adapt our practices. But you know, I'd be talking to a lot of farmers. Farmers will always adapt, and they'll always accept the challenges that are put in front of them. But they need a level playing field, and they need certainty. And I think, you know, any further change to our delegation will do such terminal damage to our industry and to our whole rural economy. You know, it will be just inconceivable. But this is not going to be, you know, this isn't going to be an easy battle. And, you know, we haven't an awful lot of friends out there in fighting this battle. And when I refer to that now, I'm referring to Europe. And the point that was made there earlier, you know, you're all lobby groups, and I would strongly urge you, the measurement of our water quality and the rules that were there when we went back in August, September 2023, we have to get that mantra changed. And we as a committee will be focused on that. And I think you know, the measurement of water quality and the fact that, you know, our water quality, I think, is the 4th highest in Europe. You know, that has to come into the equation. And it's a point, you know, I'm not going to preempt what the committee decides on the report, but definitely the parameters for measuring our water quality have to change and reflect what's reality. And I think we put parameters in place the last time in the spring of 2022 when there was an agreement in Brussels that no way were we going to be able to drum through. And that has to be taken out of the equation before the next review takes place. And like, that review is only 15 to 16 months away. This is a short window, and like every 2 years reviews coming at us. And I think that's another thing that has to be, if we're able to hold our ground in this review in the back end of 2025, you know, you need a 4 or 5 year window after that. We can't be going back every 2 years and having this uncertainty coming down the tracks again. So, you know, I think Senator Lombard wants to make a comment before we close. But, you know, I just say, as a committee, you know, we obviously have to listen to every side, and, you know, that's our job as an Oireachtas committee, and we have to take on views, you know, every stakeholder that's there, environmental, agricultural, etc. And we will be doing that. But as I said, I hope we can put together a report that can stand scrutiny and that will help us when we go back to Brussels. The comment that was made there about the task force, you know, again, I think, you know, that is definitely a valid point. But we have a water framework group there at the moment, and you know, how well is that functioning, and what's that bringing to the table? So I suppose I'm not trusting anyone else to do what we have to do. We intend to play our part here in making sure that the proper arguments get to where they should get in Brussels.